But anyway, today is actually a really cool day. Today we're here with our special guest, who is an intern here at BIND, and is also actually a brain injury survivor. She's currently being one of our counselors, and we are really glad to have you here because I've been getting to meet you and all of that, but we're also really excited to have you here for our listeners to get to know you a little bit better and for our members to know you too. So thank you so much for coming in and being here to share your perspective. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored and excited.
Welcome to Bindwaves, the official podcast of the Brain Injury Network of Dallas. I'm Brian White, BIND's Executive Director. On each episode, we'll be providing insight into the brain injury community. We'll be talking to members and professionals regarding their stories and the important role of BIND's Clubhouse. We work as a team to inspire hope, community, and a sense of purpose to survivors, caregivers, and the public. Thank you for tuning into Bindwaves. Let's get on with the show.
So just so I know that you and I have had a couple of personal conversations, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story?
Absolutely. I was 41 years old, and one evening I could not walk down my hallway, pretty narrow hallway, without running into the walls. And Todd, my better half, said, I think we may need to go to an emergency room. We were very close to the hospital, went to the emergency room. A lot of confusion later. I found out I had a brain tumor and was scheduled for craniotomy brain surgery a few days later. And following that brain surgery, recovery went well for a while, and then, I started losing weight. All these other issues started coming up, and it turned out that I had a MRSA infection in my brain from the first surgery, as well as meningitis. And that original craniotomy and the resulting infection caused cranial nerve damage in the resectioning and debulking of that tumor.
Wow. I actually, right now that I was listening to you, can you say that again?
Sure. Cranial nerve damage.
Oh, okay. But the first surgery that you had?
The craniotomy.
There you go.
Yes. You learn all sorts of fun new words when you get brain injuries, don't we?
Yeah. I had a surgery like that too. So when you were telling me, I'm like, I didn't even know that about you. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, not awesome, but it's good to be able to learn more about you and just different things that we can relate to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's nice to be in a room where craniotomy isn't like
a bad word.
Say what? Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
This is true.
Yeah. So, I guess a little bit about that, that's scary. I mean, just everybody's injury is a little bit different, but how did it affect you afterwards? Like Kelsey and I have a little bit of cognitive issues here and there and wrong words, and obviously I'm physically.
Absolutely. Well, I had lots of effects, like so many of us. Rehab for me was learning to walk and talk and do all sorts of things all over again. So for me, the cranial nerves that were affected were trigeminal, which is your facial muscles, and that's on my right side. And it also affected abducens, which is the nerve that controls your eye's ability to go from center to the outside. And so my right eye will travel to the left, up and down, but not to the right. Also with that abducens cranial nerve damage, my eye does not close all the way. So it basically causes like a chronic dry eye. Brain injuries are like the gift that keeps giving, right?
Exactly.
So I'm currently have these new eye drops that they made out of my blood. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, to see if they can help at least curtail some of the cornea damage. I still cannot pass a swallow study. I guess that's glossopharyngeal cranial nerve, excuse me. But I was determined that if I was going to live, that I was going to be able to eat. So I had a feeding tube for about a year and a half. But slowly, somehow, my body figured out another way to allow me to be able to swallow. I've had 4 hip dislocations and 2 hip replacements. Consequences of actually vascular necrosis, consequences from steroids and all the attempts to shrink the tumor, and then also the treatment for the infection. It took me a very long time to get my neurocognitive testing. That was really hard for me. It's like I didn't want to see. And I think it's probably now I can look at it as a blessing, because I always spoke so quickly that no one could understand me. I was always just like kind of running around, and so my processing speed has slowed down. But if you ask people that know me, they probably say that was one of the benefits, maybe, of the whole ordeal. But yeah, it's just really great for me to be around my people, you know?
And we totally understand. We always tell everyone, no one gets a brain injured like a brain injured. So,
oh, amen to that.
yeah, we're glad you're here. We're glad we get to help you with your internship. And we're excited about that. So you said it, like, how long were you in the hospital with your recovery? Were you inpatient only, outpatient,
so
all that fun stuff?
I went to like a skilled nursing originally. And then from there, I transferred to Anna, the Pate location, for residential rehab. Okay. I was there, I don't know, 3 months, something like that, till finally I was like, something's really wrong. And we went to MD Anderson, and he's the head chondrosarcoma guy. And he took one look at me without, a blood draw or anything. He said, she's got meningitis, and if you don't get her to the ER here or drive back to Dallas and take her straight, she's not going to make it.
Oh, wow.
So really the brain cancer, obviously had it gone untreated would have been detrimental, but that was not really what caused the most critical elements, when things got really bad. It was really that brain infection, right, and the lack of anybody really recognizing that that's what was going on. I went back, came back to Dallas. They had a second craniotomy. They opened it up to clean it all out. Went back through rehab again. I always knew that there was going to be 2 surgeries. So chondrosarcoma is actually a bone cancer, really bone and cartilage. And so when it happens in the brain, it is going to be near the brain stem, and right around the carotid artery. So I still have a remaining part of the tumor, the piece that's wrapped around the carotid artery that, obviously no surgeon would want to touch, because it's just too dangerous. Yeah. But I've had proton radiation. So hopefully that will abate any future growth. I just recently made 5 years without any new growth. So
nice.
Yeah,
that's really good.
That's great.
Yeah, that was a nice hallmark in the journey.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think you just said 5 years of not getting any growth, but I think it's really important sometimes to really recognize all the steps you have taken. And I think that everything you've been sharing of what ended up happening. Yeah, you started with a tumor, and then it led to all of these that created a lot more difficulties. But how long was it ago when you first had the tumor? Like, when did this whole journey start? Or like, I don't know, hiccup step. Where did that hiccup start?
Right. So, like, and you have to understand, well, you all understand, like, my memory is fuzzy. So this is piecing together memory and medical records. But by the time I had, so they ended up going back in to finish. And obviously I went to a different surgeon at a different hospital after my first experience. And my neurosurgeon was Dr. Coimbra, and he partnered up with Yoav Hahn, who is a neurological ENT, both at Medical City. And because the cranial nerve damage also affected, I had no hearing at all in my right ear. I also had no vestibular, so I was getting no like value from that ear for balance. So the last surgery, that was their exit route for the tumor, was through my ear. So in that process, they went ahead and removed all of the ear mechanics out of that ear. So I cannot pass a field sobriety test, no matter if I'm stone cold sober, because my balance is an issue. Kind of also compounded with the vision too.
Sure.
But all in all, when I say 5 years, no new growth on the tumor, I mean from the day it was discovered, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So there was a lot of messing going on in my brain, and things were, happening during that time. But I really kind of was in the clearing. I say that, but that's prior to an eye surgery I had, both the hips, all this other stuff, but really kind of out of the cancer treatments and rehab after about 2.5 years, 3 years.
Wow. I'm going to press a quick pause on our conversation just to remind, like, not only you, but us as co-hosts and our listeners, like, the importance of your story and what we're sharing and how we're doing this on every single episode on every Thursday. So let's continue listening to you, and then remind our listeners to continue listening to us on every Thursday, and then make sure to check our podcast at bindwaves on all your social platforms. So, yeah. But thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's awesome. I'd like to hear all of that, because that's a lot of bumps on the road. That's a lot. And I think that's really good, because, like, we're seeing, I had a stroke in December. It's going to be 6 years ago. And I thought a lot of had bumps, but you had a lot of bumps too. And, like, look at, like, you're so inspiring, and I don't think we've shared that yet. So I would love to go more towards, like, where you are today, because that was a huge adventure from the very beginning, right? That none of that was expected, right? So where are you today? Like, where are you today? Like, what are you doing here as an intern here at BIND?
Well, so I met BIND's executive director at Pate. He was my counselor when I was at the day program. And I kind of, well, let me back up. So I met at the ranch in Anna, and you have basically, it kind of reminds me of those motor coach inns, it had like you had like a front door that opened, out, and then you had another door that opened into an interior hallway. And I remember one morning I was in the shower, and I was super dizzy, and I hit my head, and it's it's like a concrete cinder block, shower. And I was like, I can't tell anybody, because I didn't want to have any more precautions. I was already mad because I had a walker and all of that. So, and I realized, and I joked that I hit myself on the head, and realized I had been working to apply for disability and had received that. And I realized this is my opportunity to go back to school. I did not have a great first shot. I did a lot of, maybe shots. Maybe that was my problem. is in fact that was, yes. And so I had my daughter 13 months later, my son, and, started a career in geriatrics and just never thought that was going to be a possibility until maybe I retired one day. And that kept me going, like, if I can just get through this, I can get to school. If I can get through this, I can get to school. And, I could appreciate it more. So I was, able to do better in school, finished up my undergrad, and then started on my master's. And I am doing my internship to become a licensed professional counselor here at BIND, my new favorite place in the whole world.
So, okay, that was kind of what we were talking about. So you kind of did school, and then you didn't do school, and had a brain injury and said, I'm going to go back to school. That's pretty impressive, because most people go, I had a brain injury, I can't finish school. So very proud of you on that. Did you, immediately when you decided to go back to school, did you know you wanted to work with brain injured? I mean, is that what made you decide to go into counseling and towards brain injury? Or
I knew that I wanted to go into counseling. It's kind of something I'd always was interested in, but really felt out of the realm because I didn't have my undergrad. I was going to have to go to grad school. And then, it's just that whole make your pain your purpose. I mean, it just makes sense. And I had Brian, and I had people that helped me along the way, and that, were instrumental in keeping me positive, throughout. So I owe it to the universe,
Yeah, that's true. So right now that you're doing your internship for counseling, now that you're here part of BIND, obviously you have like a whole different perspective because you're also a survivor. You've also been through a lot of issues that we individually have been through as members of BIND, and those people that are sharing our stories they're barely going through. But what are you looking forward to gain from BIND as a counselor? Because you have the perspective as a member or like as a brain injury survivor, but as through your internship, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I can tell you that it's really like being in an inspiration factory. You know what I mean? It's like the nice things that you're saying about me, it's like that's what we're surrounded with every day. It's hard because we can see the resilience in others, but sometimes it takes, showing someone a mirror so that they can see their own, resilience in the situation. Yeah. And kind of this, I guess the sentiment is we are all the same, but we're all very different. It's like all of our stories have these interesting, nuanced particulars. One thing I always end up learning a lot because I'm looking up, well, tell me more about how your brain injury. And then I'm looking up that part of the brain, and then I'm looking up that part of the brain and how it affects this. And so I kind of like that too. It's just like we don't know everything about the brain, and, be that continual learning.
Sure.
With each individual.
Yeah. And I honestly really like what you said about like a mirror, because I think that's really different to be connecting with a counselor after having an experience that's even a very little bit similar. It's amazing to be able to see someone that's easily connecting to you because you've lived through something like that. So I'm super excited for you, for BIND, for having you for a while now as our intern, and also for all of our listeners to be listening to us. So thank you so much, honestly, for being here and taking the time to spend with us.
Well, I have to tell you that part of, we all have to go through our own things. And, even, we can't forget those of us that do not show outward signs of our brain injury. That has its own complications, right? Because it's like, yeah. Anyway, right. So for me, you can see my face, my palsy in the face, my eye, and that's been really hard to adjust to, especially in a counseling setting. Literally, you're sitting very close to someone, and I can't tell you what it felt like to be able to be here. Because all of a sudden, I'm going to cry, all of a sudden the thing that made me feel the most vulnerable was my leading best asset. You know, it was better that you could see it on my face, that there would be no doubt when I sat down with someone with the brain injury that they would be able to know that I knew on some level, you know, where they were. And so I shudder to think, had Brian not been like, okay, come on in and we'll talk about it.
Right.
This internship experience could have been a lot different. So I appreciate you all.
Well, we are so happy to have you here and that you're gaining all that experience, and we get to gain for ourselves for having you here, having someone to talk to. So we are so thankful that you came on here with us today and shared your story, and we can't wait to learn more about you. We might have to have you back when it gets closer to the end of your internship. But thank you so much. Thanks to everyone for listening to us, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank y'all. I really appreciate it.
Yep, and if you would like to contact us, for all the listeners, and you included, if you would like to contact us, you can email us at bindwaves@thebind.org, and just make sure to follow us on the Instagram account, which is obviously at bindwaves, sorry, and then visit us on the website of thebind.org/bindwaves.
And also don't forget to click the like button, click the share button, click all the buttons wherever they are, everything, so that you're notified, subscribe. All the buttons, just click them and go and click the likes. And thank you so much for listening to us here at Bind Waves. And until next time.
Until next time.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to Bind Waves and continue to support Bind and our nonprofit mission.
We support brain injury survivors as they reconnect into the life, the community, and their workplace.
And we couldn't do that without great listeners like you. We appreciate each and every one of you. Continue watching. Until next time.
Until next time.